So, welcome 405th, Facebook Wall, People Group Plus Circles, and Fat Ass Productions. I am Mike466, or Mike C. I kind of outlined these really quickly in my last video. I went and grabbed my finished one, but the helmets that were sitting on my counter, I'm waiting for some resin to dry behind me, but while I do that, I figured I'd do this. This is how a helmet evolves. One step at a time. One step at a time. This is one step. This is actually be 2 steps, and this is like 3 steps right here, and this is the completion. I didn't think I'd be one of those guys that has enough stuff actually just lying around to be able to do a progression video, but apparently I'm one of those guys. Reason being is I found this. This is from back when I was way too afraid to do this kind of stuff, so I made a whole whack of these. I had like 3 of this exact file. I only needed 1 in the end, but I started out with 3. So from there I've got that. The bucket I'm currently making to replace this bucket and then the bucket that these 2 are actually replacing. This is my test bucket. It turned out okay. So, starting from the beginning, moving to the end, I'm going to try and do this in under 10 minutes while some resin dries behind me. This is a Pepakura file. It is a papercraft file that I printed directly from the internet. I got it from a friend of mine who got it from the 405th. It's really old, and as you can see the 405th is still on there. It is a really old unfold of the ODST helmet. It's not very good. It's really low res. It needs some loving. But I love them for printing this, and I love them for having this because with it I made that. Now, a PEP file, this one took me a long time to build because I took a lot of time with this to make it all look really pretty. I still have some gaps and whatnot in there, but this should only take you, because this took me about 2.5 hours. It should only take you about that much time. 2.5 to 3 hours at most. It's kind of like building Lego, but it's made out of paper. It's simple. You follow the numbers, use the program, build the helmet. Really nice. Comes out fairly quickly. Makes you feel good. That's step 1. Step 2 from there is this yellowy brown texture on the paper that you're seeing now. That is fiberglass resin. I did this helmet in 4 stages. I did the top section, then I did the middle section in 2 halves. So, turning the helmet sideways, I'm going to kneel down a little bit. I did the visor to about here, then I did this segment plus the back of the helmet. And then from there, I did the lower section. While I was doing this, this helmet was sitting on top of a bucket and stuffed full of plastic bags. The fiberglass resin itself adds no structural integrity, but it keeps the paper together, forcing it to hold its shape and making it water resistant. That way, when you add the Rondo on the inside, it will not destroy the build. So this step takes about an hour to an hour and a half. Reason being for that is you want to wait for it to cure and dry before you move on, and it depends on how many sections you do it in. I took my time with this one like I took it with this one. The next step takes much less time, and it is on the inside. This only took me an hour. This is the step known as Rondo. This is only 2 pours, as opposed to my last couple of buckets, which took like 3 or 4 because I really sucked at it. It is slush casting. This is a mixture of fiberglass resin and Bondo. In the appropriate amounts, you can take it, dump it into a helmet, and just roll the bucket around. And then from there, it gives you that nice tan coating on the inside of everything. What does that do? Well, where fiberglass resin gives the paper here a rubbery texture and is still capable of being crushed, Rondo allows for that. That is your first layer of actual hardening. Now there's a second layer you should do on the inside, as recommended by a lot of people. This helmet has what's called foam at 10, but I'll get to that in a little bit. So this helmet is now where I am. Rondo, resin. Resined, and then rondoed. It's going to get confusing because I'm going to mention resin in 2 different steps. But this is fiberglass resin and then Rondo. So that's that hardened up. This helmet is the next 2 stages. It is, well, don't include the prime, but the next 2 stages is Bondo and spot putty. Bondo allows this to have that nice smooth curvature to it that you see, that nice helmet look where it's a finished product. Spot putty is the orange and the red that you see. Bondo is the tan. Bondo goes on first, but as you will notice with your Bondo, when you apply it, it will leave nicks, chips, scratches, dents, like these little guys right here. They're very annoying to look at, and you will hate them. You will hate them with every fiber of your being. You can't get rid of all of them, all these uneven patches, not right away. You can sand them down, smooth it out, whatever have you. It will get rid of majority of it. All these little uneven discrepancies you can take care of even with a knife. But from there, once you get it so fine, you have to utilize spot putty. Spot putty will go in the gaps, some of the crevices, just the small areas. And then from there, I recommend hand sanding. I machine sand the Bondo, hand sanded the spot putty. From there, you can add primer. Now, the reason I'm getting rid of this helmet is it's too large. It is 2 centimeters larger in all directions. Everywhere. Now, I didn't think that would be that big of a deal, but as you can see placed side by side with my old helmet, how much larger it actually is. Kind of embarrassing. I didn't think it would make that much of a difference, but apparently it does. My bad. That's what this new one corrects. This new one is more accurately sized, utilizing this helmet's dimensions. So, from there, we go from papercraft to Bondo. From Bondo, you move on to painting. This is 3 layers of paint, utilizing Sean Bradley's painting tutorial. It started out with a layer of light primer that you can see right there. Moved to, which unfortunately kind of came through the nickel in some areas, because I was not very nice to this helmet. But from the primer, you add nickel. The nickel paint makes a really nice effect underneath everything, and you should have a nice silver-looking helmet. From there, I added toothpaste and then sprayed everything gunmetal. The toothpaste I used was gel, and I used it in an inconsistent amount. That's also a bad thing. It allowed some of the gunmetal to adhere to some of the nickel underneath it. That's kind of bad. Then, I added the red stripe on top of the gunmetal. The nice thing about this is that it was a very simple, very easy to do weathering look. And it's very powerful. I kind of weathered the crap out of this helmet, but that's my bad. It's a tester bucket. Like, this is actually just a test build. I don't know what to do with it. Nobody wants it. So, I guess I'm keeping it. The finished product from this stage took me about, in grand total, 15 hours. This stage is where all the work came in. Like this and this, 4 hours. This was like 7 by itself, and then wiring it up and everything like that was probably 2, 3. Yeah. So, from there, I'm going to flip it over. Ooh, I forgot to mention. Before I painted it, I did a final layer of hardening with this stuff. That's Foam-It. Foam-It 10 is a rigid 2-part epoxy foam that you can buy from Smoothcast. It is my final layer of hardening. On these parts over here that I talked about earlier, I'm utilizing Smoothcast 65D. That is another type of resin. That is a 2-part resin. Now, from there, I did things like cooling fans, with a little switch there, and LEDs. Where are they in the helmet? Well, they're right there. This is all wired in series to 2 separate power sources. Power source for the lights, power source for the fans. You can't really hear them, but they're running. My recommendation is very simple. Anyone can do this. If I can do it at the age of 22, you can do it at the age of 17. You can do it at the age of 30 if you really want. You can do it at the age of 40. If you're a huge Halo fan and just want a helmet for whatever reason, do it. It's easy, it's fun, and it's very satisfying when you get to this part. Even my garbage bucket gives me some kind of mark of pride when I look down at it and get to see it sitting there. My recommendations: follow some simple guidelines, and always, always, always consult the 405th before you do anything. I'm going to link a couple of areas in this description that show you what I did by following along with other people. This stage, by the way, from here forward, even the painting, wear a respirator, for God's sake. You can do this stuff outdoors with just a crappy dust mask and breather portion on the front of it, but seriously, it's not going to be good for you. Bondo, Rondo, fiberglass resin, the dust from Bondo, all of it is toxic, and all of it will damage you somehow. I will acknowledge this fact by stating quite flatly that while I've been working on this, I walked into my garage after leaving the cap off my fiberglass resin. It made me feel nauseous, gave me a headache, and I had to sit down for a few minutes before digging out my respirator. I was only going in there to grab something else, but I had neglected to put the cap back on. Since then, I make sure all my stuff is closed before I go back in there, and I always have my respirator. If you are going to be working outdoors, still please wear the respirator. I know outside it's well ventilated, blah, 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 but for the love of God, please just wear the respirator. So, from start to finish, all you need, time, effort, love. Doesn't matter how long it takes you to get to there, just do it. I encourage anyone and everyone who wants a helmet to just pick it up and run, because if I can do it, so can you. As always, I am Viper466. I am Mike C. of the 405th.com. And I wish you the best in all of your Halo project building, because seriously, as fun as it is, the end result, the satisfaction, always guaranteed. Best of luck to you, future builders.